Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Robyn MacKillop with Get That GED, and today we're going to talk about taking the science test. Science seems like a daunting subject. There's so much. Everywhere you look, everything you look at is science. The fact that you are looking with your eyes, science is everywhere. And that makes it really hard to study for because it's huge. So it's a difficult subject to study for. It just is. That means there are some strategies you can use to pass a science test. Because if you study science, you may not even be studying the right things. So the first thing you want to know about science is it's a reading test. There are going to be terms you're not familiar with. There just is. So if you can accept that going in, that you're not going to know what everything means necessarily, it's okay. You don't have to be able to define words. What you will want to do is look at a reading, look at the question, always look at the question first, and see if you can find a clue in the question. Often, the question itself will lead you to the right answer. It seems odd. I'll show you some examples, but it works. And you don't have to spend hours and hours studying science. You'd never end. You'd be studying for the rest of your life and you still wouldn't know it all. So make it easier on yourself. Get comfortable enough with the reading portion that you can ace the rest of it. And if you've taken language arts or social studies, it's kind of the same idea. There's a lot of reading. You're going to be given information you are not familiar with. You're going to have vocabulary and words that you're not used to seeing or hearing or looking at. But there's usually a hint in the question to lead you to the best answer. And again, we'll do a couple of examples so you can see that in action. The other thing, another big thing in science are tables and graphs. These are kind of nice because they have to have the information within them. And we'll do a couple tables and graphs today too. Don't let them intimidate you. Once you are comfortable with looking at tables and graphs and how to read them, they're all pretty much the same. They're set up the same way. They can look different. You can have a pie graph or a bar graph or a line graph, or you can have a table, but the information is actually pretty much in the same place. And it's harder to take you away from the correct answer because it has to be in there. It's not like they wrote a big long paragraph and said, yeah, so find this information somewhere in the meaning of the words. No, the information has to be within that table or graph. And then the last thing would be knowing the process of a scientific experiment. This would be the hypothesis or the observation, the questions, the conclusion. I did not give that to you in order, but knowing that process, you'll probably have one or two questions solely on the scientific experiment process. And if you're comfortable with it, it's only 5 things you have to know. It's not bad. So it's worth knowing. All right. And then I'll break down some of the science test parameters. It's 90 minutes. This is a test that you can take online. There will be some math, but you can use the online calculator. And most of the math is formula based. So if you have gone through geometry and you're reasonably comfortable with those formulas, you're going to be fine on science. The formulas may be different, but you're just substituting the information that they give you into the formula and then calculating it. So the formula math is not bad on the science test. You can do it on the online calculator, which gives you the opportunity to take the test online if you so choose. Otherwise, I'll come back to that, Lisa. I'll get you those things. Otherwise, take it in a testing center. You can take your calculator with you. And some testing centers actually provide a calculator, but I'd say if you've got one, take it with you just in case. That way you've got it. What else do you need to know about the test itself? It's just one part. There's no writing. The Kaplan books still tell you that you have to write. You do not. You have no essay or writing. It's the whole thing is multiple choice or fill in or drag and drop. They like those too. 90 minutes. Science is a good one to take online from home if you can, because you can get scheduled so quickly. But otherwise, take it in the testing center and take your calculator with you. All right. The big things that you need to know, I'll repeat these. Reading. You cannot possibly study everything you would need to know for science. You'd be studying for the rest of your life because science is everywhere. Everything you look at, everything you touch, see, feel, taste, hear, it's all science. You are science. So there's no way to study everything that could possibly show up on the science test. So that means get really comfortable with reading. And this is the same advice I give you for language arts and social studies. Within that reading, there are going to be clues. And so the first thing you do when you come to a question, look at the question. Don't start reading. Go to the questions, figure out what they're asking. And we'll do some. I'll have some examples so you can see what I'm talking about. It's easier to see it than it is to hear it. The other thing you'll need to know the process of scientific experiments. There are 5 elements of a scientific experiment. I don't think we'll go over those today, but I'll put it in the group. And then the last thing is being really comfortable with tables and graphs. That's a good way. Once you're comfortable reading them, you can ace them. And that's a good way to collect points. So any questions up to this point before I start going into some science work?
I just chat with you in the chat, and I asked you a question about what are the 5 questions we need to know in science.
So the reading is the big part, knowing how to get through the reading. That's the big one. Tables and graphs, and then math formulas, because that's the type of math you'll get in science. And then lastly, the 5 elements of a scientific experiment. So let's go through some of these questions. I'm going to do a table and graph question. This one is an interesting one. The information is always in. Let me share my screen so you can see it. And share. All right, hopefully you can see this. We're going to be looking at this one on the right. Calculating mass, volume, and density. It comes with a paragraph. Do not read the paragraph unless you have to, after you've looked at the questions. So go straight down to the questions. Don't even look at the graph really. The first question, an unknown substance has a mass of 5.4 grams and a volume of 2 centimeters cubed. Based on information from the table, the substance most likely is. Well, that's not great because 5.4 grams, we don't see a 5.4, and 2 centimeters cubed, we don't see that either. But look up here in this green, here's the material. This is where we're going to find our answer. And up here it says density, and then in parentheses, grams divided by centimeters cubed. So we come back down to the question, grams and centimeters cubed. So let's just put that in the order that they gave there. Let me grab a pen, see if I can do this. So it said grams, 5.4. Ooh, that's not what I wanted. Hold on a second. Here, let's see if this works. 5.4 and then divided by centimeters cubed. And that was 2 centimeters cubed. So 5.4 divided by 2. And that gets you 2.7. Look at this. So your answer is going to be aluminum. Based on the information from the table, the substance most likely is aluminum. Now, the information was in the graph. It wasn't really easy to find. I mean, it's up here in a little parentheses, and it's down here in the footnotes. Grams divided by centimeter cube, grams per cubic centimeter. They didn't really tell you you were looking for that. It's forcing you to see what they give you and then logically put it in order. So it's not a super easy question, but the answer or the clues are in there. And that's one of the things I'd like you to do is get more comfortable looking for clues rather than looking for verbatim information in the reading or even reading everything. Because if you read everything, you're going to run out of time. And we know that if there was no timer, you would all pass it the first time through. That timer is what messes students up. I don't love it, but I'm not in charge yet. I don't get to change it. So that was an interesting question. We had information in 2 places, same exact information. And we took what they gave us in the question, just did a basic math problem, came up with aluminum. Now, here's another mathy table question. Same table, just going to go down a little further so you can see. Based on the information from the table, which value is another representation of the density of nitrogen? Whoa, that's a lot, isn't it? We're going to go look for nitrogen right here. I'm going to change the color of my pen. Change it to green. So here's nitrogen. And let me go up a little so you can see this again. This column is density. So here's the density of nitrogen. They gave it to us. But the question wants to know what's another representation of the density of nitrogen. And when we look at the answers, they're all kind of similar to this, aren't they? So the first thing we're going to do is how do we figure this out? Well, I want you to go back to the footnotes. Right here it says density in kilograms per cubic meter can be obtained by multiplying a value by 1,000. Tiny little footnote, small print. So what they want is you to take this number and multiply it by 1,000. So it is, when I do it, uh-oh, where's my calculator? Let me do it really fast. We've got 0.001251 times 1,000, 1.251.
D.
Yeah, great job. You're way faster than I am. But yeah. And see what they did a little sneaky thing right here with B, 1.25. Seems right. If you were rounding, it would be correct. But they did not ask you to round, so make sure you go for the 1.251. So that is a really good example of the type of math problems that you will have. The calculation portion is not difficult. You know, we had a basic division problem, a basic multiplication problem. It's getting the information in the right place and knowing what to do with it. But you'll find that in science. The math is not horrible. The part that is a struggle is getting the information they give you and getting it into the right place so you can find the answer. All right, let's go find, let me find a one in which it gives you a hint. I hope I'm not making any of you seasick. Let's see. I don't think you're ready for. While I'm looking, there are a couple things. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and find the question I'm looking for. There are a couple things you have to study for sure for science. One would be Punnett squares. That's genetics. And those are those little 4 square items, and you put the male donor on the top, female on the side, and then you figure out the offspring. That will be on the test probably more than once. And balancing chemical equations. And I will have a class on balancing chemical equations because it's complicated. It is difficult to learn on your own. It doesn't make sense when you look at it. So it helps to have an instructor for that part of it. Punnett squares are fun. Once you see them done, you'll pick it up pretty quickly. They're fun. They can be an enjoyable homework assignment. But chemical equations can be confusing and messy until you get more comfortable. There is definitely an element of comfort that you need for certain things. Chemical equations is one of those. So let me find. Oh, here's a good question. Let me go back and share this question. I don't know that you'll love this question because it's a bit of a trick question. They say there are no trick questions. There absolutely are. Let me share this. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this one here again on the right. They gave you a huge paragraph. I do not want you to read it unless you have to. So skip the paragraph. They've got an image here. Gas molecules are supposed to be yellow. It's really hard to see, but that would be all these little guys up here. And then liquid molecules have kind of the little crescent, the blue crescent in them. So these are all the gas molecules in the white on this first image, and the gas molecules are down in the blue. The question, based on the diagram, what outcome can be predicted when the pressure of a gas above the surface of a solution is increased? And what they've shown you is from the first image, they've pushed down onto, let's say it's a beaker or something. They've increased the pressure by taking away space. And what happens? Well, some of the yellow have moved into the blue. Does that matter? They want us to say, what outcome can be predicted when the pressure of a gas above is increased? So when they push down, what changes? Our answers are less gas will dissolve, and gas is the yellow. So let's go to our first picture and figure out how many gas molecules we have. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are 10 gas molecules. So let's count the yellow ones over on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, there's still 10. Interesting. There's not fewer. So we're not going to choose A because that's not true. There's the same number. More gas will dissolve in solution. We know that's, oh, you're good. You are fast. We know it's not more. It's 10 to 10. That looks like that doesn't look like a 0 there. That's better. The gas will become a liquid. We can see all the molecules, can't we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 liquid molecules. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 liquid. They're all the same. We have the same number of dots in both images. So, yep, you called it. It is D. No change. So this is one of the reasons I like image and table-based questions. They can make the the question itself difficult, but you only have this information. They can't bring something in. You know how in language arts, you get the question, what inference can you make based on the author's point of view? That's a ridiculous question. What they're asking you to do is make an assumption about what the author was thinking when he wrote it. That's not fair. Who knows what the author was thinking? But that's what they're wanting you to do, come up with the idea of what the author might have been thinking. Here, they can't be as muddy. You've got the image. The information has to be in that image, even if they make it difficult. In this one, they make it difficult until you realize that you have the same number of these little dots in both pictures. And then you're like, wait a minute, I have the same number of gas molecules here as there. That didn't change anything. So it's pretty wild. And let me see if I've got another. I'm thinking of one. I'm not sure where it is. Lots of table and graphs in this particular assignment, which I like because it's hard to mess with it. The information, it's there. Give me just a second. I'm going to see if I can find the question that's totally based on clues. Maybe I can. We will see. And good job on answering those. All right, that's not what I wanted. Darn. Well, I can always come back to it and post it in the group because it's a really good example of a hint in the question itself. Can I see it? Can I find it? Oh, this is actually, I'm going to do this one. This will answer, Lisa, this will answer your original question. So let me share screen. All right, scientific method. This you need to be comfortable with. It's not complicated because what you're looking for, let me grab a highlighter so I can show you. You are looking for make an observation, form a hypothesis, conduct the test, make a conclusion. That's basically it. And if you know those things for a scientific experiment, you'll be fine. You'll get probably 2-ish questions on scientific experiment. And knowing those will keep you from having to read the entire thing. So let's go ahead and look at this question. And I did not read the rest of this paragraph. I knew what was coming. So I really only looked at the first paragraph. But let's go to the question first. According to the passage, which step in the scientific method occurs before forming a hypothesis? We already know, make an observation, form a hypothesis, conduct a test, making a conclusion. We have found the information we need. We can ignore the rest of this reading. So which one of these comes before forming a hypothesis? You got it. Making an observation. Good job. And all of this extra paragraph, you don't need to read. It does you no good to read it. And I know it's hard when you're in the middle of a test, you really feel compelled to read everything they give you because you want all the information, but they tend to give you way too much information. And what that does is, one, it slows you down because you're reading stuff you don't need. And two, it's taken up time. So beat them at their own game. They're trying to pull you into running out the clock, but they're going to give you way more information than you need. And that takes a little bit of practice. And that's one of the things that I teach, is strategies for getting through these readings and knowing whether you need to read the whole thing. It's important not to. Very rarely do you need to read something in its entirety on the test. And that's for science, social studies, or language arts. Rarely do you need to read everything. Often in language arts and social studies, the questions will say in paragraph 3, when you've got questions like that, only look at paragraph 3. You don't need paragraph 2 or paragraph 4. You only need paragraph 3. The answer will be in there. So let me see if there's another one here. Shoot, I'm going to have to put that one in. Oh, here it is. I found it. This is an example of a clue in the question. So let me share the screen again. All right, so this is light in circadian rhythm. A couple of paragraphs. I'm going to go to the question first before I start reading. Which detail best supports the idea that disrupting the body's circadian rhythm can have a negative effect on a person's health? That's a lot, and you probably feel compelled to go back and read. And you may even think, it's only 2 paragraphs. I can read this. There's a clue in the question right here. A person's health. So let's look at the answers before we go back and read. A is, we live in a world in which work, family, and social pressures chip away at our sleep. That's likely true. I mean, just in your everyday life, you can probably comfortably say true, but is it answering the question, which is actually focusing on your health? So let's say no to A for now. Let's go to B. A misaligned body clock can increase the risk of developing diabetes, depression, obesity, and cancer. That makes sense. The risk of developing diabetes, depression, obesity, cancer, those are health issues. So when you see, if you can grab something like that, you don't even have to read. Your answer is going to be B. I'm going to go through C and D because we can, but I will tell you, if you know that your answer is A or B, don't even read the other ones. There will be questions where you're like, oh, that's the answer. Mark it, move on. Don't even check it against others. But let's look at C in this case because we can. Chronic caffeine use interferes with the body's ability to regulate circadian rhythm. That's probably true, but does it answer the question? It doesn't talk about things that we might eat or consume. And then D, long hours and shift work can disrupt sleep patterns. Absolutely true. Even though they use the word disrupt, is it actually talking about a negative effect on a person's health? It's not. The only one you can choose is B. And again, it takes a little bit of practice to see those, but once you know what to look for, it gets a lot easier. And then you can just jump right into taking the test and not being concerned about it. You just can't study everything in science that you might need or you might see. There's too much. Science is everywhere. It's huge. So some tips and tricks will get you through into a place where you can absolutely pass the test. You don't have to know everything. There's going to be a lot of vocab and words that you just aren't familiar with, it's okay. Because what you're looking for is what answer best fits this question. And there are going to be times when you do have to read. That's perfectly okay. But some of the time you don't. And that's what matters, is if you can save time and you can have time at the end of the test to go back and look at questions you may have wanted to look at again. Absolutely. It's great. And all of you will pass it. Boom, done. All right, that is it for my presentation. I will say I am starting up some group classes. They'll probably start in July. I also take in one-on-one clients. So if you are wanting to get done really, really quickly, that might be the way to go. If you have a little bit of time, group classes are great because you have some peers to work with. You know, you'll build relationships with other people in the class, find a study partner. It's kind of nice. And one-on-one is really good if you need to get it done or you want to get it done fast, because you and I will go through what you need and only what you need to get it done. All right, well, I appreciate you all being here, and I will talk to you soon. I will, yeah, definitely. And I will talk to you all soon. Next week, I'll do a video on, I think it's language arts next week. The next 4 weeks, it'll be one subject a week, and then I'll be doing some other videos. And I'll make sure this is up too. Thank you, Lisa. You have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for being here. I'll talk to you all soon. See you in the group.